Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Awesome. So today we're tackling something that I think a lot of us are constantly striving for, uh,
Mhm.
and that is how to live a simpler and happier life.
Yeah, I think that's something we can all relate to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to guide us on this deep dive, we've got this fantastic article from Tickled Think.
Oh, yeah, they always have really insightful stuff.
Right. I mean, they really get to the heart of things.
Yeah.
And this article is no exception. I mean,
I
just reading through it, I felt like, whoa, there's some seriously thought-provoking ideas in here.
I know, me too.
You ever feel like life is just going a mile a minute, like it just never stops?
All the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this deep dive is all about finding those practical ways to hit the pause button
Hmm.
and maybe even, enjoy the journey a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of hitting the pause button, one of the first things this article talks about is letting go of control.
Oh, control.
Right.
My favorite illusion.
It's a tough one, though, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. But I'm really curious, your perspective, like, why is letting go so crucial for finding happiness? What's that link?
Well, it's funny because when we try to control every little detail, we're kind of setting ourselves up for disappointment, right?
Yeah,
Because life is unpredictable. I mean, things happen.
they do.
And what's fascinating is there's actually been research done on this, and they found that people who are more okay with uncertainty and who focus on what they can influence, they tend to be happier.
Really?
Yeah, they're less stressed, they're more adaptable,
Hmm.
just generally more content.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's about kind of choosing your battles, focusing on what you can actually impact.
Exactly. And this ties in perfectly with another point the article brings up, which is defining your priorities.
Okay, priorities.
Yeah, think of it like your internal compass.
Oh, I like that.
Right. It helps you navigate through all the noise and demands of life so you're not just pulled in every direction.
Yeah, so how does that actually work in practice? I mean, we all have a million things vying for our attention every single day.
Imagine, like, you're sailing a boat, but you don't have a rudder.
Oh, no.
You're just going to be, at the mercy of the wind and waves. You're going to end up wherever they take you.
Right.
But knowing your priorities, that's like having that rudder. It lets you steer your course. You can make conscious decisions about where you invest your time and energy
I love that analogy.
so you can actually reach your destination.
So are we just supposed to, like, write down a list of priorities and call it a day? I mean, is that all it takes?
I wish it were that easy, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. The key is to really think about what truly matters to you, not what society tells you should matter or what you think you should be prioritizing.
Okay.
What actually brings you joy?
Yeah.
What gives your life meaning?
Those are some big questions. Makes you realize we're not just talking about to-do lists here.
Right. It's about aligning your actions with your values.
Mm.
And the amazing thing is when you do that, life often feels a lot less chaotic and much more fulfilling.
Now, speaking of things that can make life feel chaotic, the article also talks about the comparison game,
Oh, yeah.
especially with social media these days.
Yeah.
I've definitely fallen into that trap of scrolling through those perfectly curated feeds and feeling like I'm not enough.
Oh, I think we all have. It's like we're constantly bombarded with these, perfect versions of reality.
Right.
And it can really affect how we see ourselves.
Absolutely. So is the solution to just ditch social media altogether?
I mean, that's one option, but research has shown that even reducing your social media use can really improve your mood and self-esteem. And the more you focus on your own journey, the less those comparisons will affect you.
That's a really good point. It reminds me of this time I decided to do a week-long social media detox.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and honestly, I was amazed by how much calmer and more present I felt.
Hmm.
Like suddenly I had this mental space to actually enjoy my life instead of comparing it to everyone else's.
That's awesome. It sounds like unplugging can be a really powerful form of self-care.
Yeah. And speaking of self-care, the article highlights something that I think is so important, that self-care is not selfish. It's actually essential.
It's true. It's about prioritizing your own well-being, so you can actually be your best self in all areas of your life.
Yeah. It's funny how we sometimes feel guilty for taking care of ourselves, like it's an indulgence or something.
Right, like we don't deserve it.
Yeah. But if you're constantly running on empty, how can you possibly give your best to anything or anyone?
Exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
So what are some practical ways we can incorporate self-care into our lives?
Well, I think sometimes it's the small things that make the biggest difference. Taking a few minutes to meditate, maybe going for a walk in nature, listening to your favorite music.
Okay, that sounds doable.
Yeah, even just taking a long bath. These are all really simple ways to just recharge.
It's about giving yourself permission to prioritize your well-being, not just when you're feeling completely burnt out, but regularly.
Yeah, make it a regular practice. Think
Yeah.
of it like making a deposit into your well-being bank account.
I like that. Investing in yourself.
Exactly. You're investing in your long-term health and happiness.
That's awesome. Speaking of investments, the article also talks about the importance of gratitude.
Oh, gratitude's
It
huge.
is. We hear about it all the time. But what makes it so crucial for living a simpler, happier life?
It's not just about feeling good, you know. Studies have actually shown that practicing gratitude can have tangible benefits.
Oh, wow. Like what?
Well, for instance, people who are more grateful, they tend to be less stressed.
Okay.
They sleep better.
Wow.
Even their physical health improves.
So it's not just some woo-woo feel-good thing. It's actually backed by science. But
Exactly.
how do we actually make it a habit, especially when life gets crazy?
You know, one thing I find helpful is keeping a gratitude journal.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Every day, just write down a few things that you're grateful for. Doesn't have to be anything big. It could be, like a delicious cup of coffee in the morning, a beautiful sunset, even just a kind gesture from a stranger.
It's about shifting your focus, right?
Yeah,
Looking for the good even when things are tough.
exactly. And that's a big part of what simple living is all about. It's not about having a perfect life. It's about focusing on what truly matters, appreciating the little things.
And creating a life that feels, I don't know, aligned and fulfilling.
Absolutely.
As we're talking about focusing on what truly matters,
Hmm.
I keep thinking back to that part of the article that talks about decluttering.
Oh, yeah.
It really got me thinking about my own space.
Hmm.
Like, it's funny how a messy room can make you feel just as scattered on the inside, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's actually a whole field of psychology about this, environmental psychology, and it's super interesting. Our surroundings can totally affect how we feel.
Wow. So it's like a real thing.
Oh, yeah. Think about it. When you walk into a clean, organized room, you just instantly feel calmer, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Like visual noise reduction for your brain.
Exactly.
But the article goes beyond just physical clutter, right? Like it talks about being mindful of our possessions in general,
Yeah.
all that stuff we accumulate.
It is. It's about questioning those impulses we all have. Like, do I really need another pair of shoes? Or is this new gadget actually going to make my life better?
It's so easy to get caught up in that though, right? Like that whole consumerism cycle. But maybe what we really want isn't more stuff.
Right. Maybe it's more meaning.
Yeah. So how do we break free from that? Where do we even begin?
Well, one way is to shift our focus from owning things to experiencing life. Think about the memories that really stick with you. Are they about, like, the stuff you bought? Or are they about the moments you shared, the places you went, the connections you made?
Yeah. Those are the things that really matter.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
experiences, the relationships, the growth.
So instead of buying that new thing, maybe invest in a weekend trip with people you love or take that class you've been wanting to try.
I love that. It's about prioritizing what truly nourishes you.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. Like defining our priorities, letting go of control, cultivating gratitude, being mindful of what we buy. It's all about aligning our actions with what really matters to us.
You got it. And that brings us to another important aspect of simple living that the article talks about, which is surrounding yourself with positive people.
Oh yeah, our relationships. They can make such a huge difference, can't they? I mean,
Yeah.
you all know how draining it can be to be around negative people.
Yeah.
But how do positive relationships actually contribute to a happier life?
Positive relationships give us a sense of belonging, support, love,
Okay.
and all of that is essential for happiness and resilience. They're like a safe space where we can just be ourselves.
It's like having a built-in cheer squad and support system all rolled into one.
Yeah.
But let's be real, not all relationships are perfect. What about those relationships that are a little more complicated or even stressful? How do we deal with those?
That's where boundaries come in. It's okay to prioritize your well-being, even if it means distancing yourself from relationships that aren't good for you.
Right. And that's not selfish.
No, it's self-care. It's about creating healthy space in your life.
For yourself and the people who really lift you up. And speaking of creating space, I'm curious about what the article had to say about self-love.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean in this context of living simply?
Self-love is really the foundation of everything. It's about accepting yourself fully, all your flaws and treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer to someone you love.
Mm, that's beautiful. But how do we actually cultivate self-love, especially if we're used to being critical of ourselves or comparing ourselves to others?
It's a journey, it really is, and it starts with being aware of how you talk to yourself. Like, are you always putting yourself down or focusing on your flaws?
Yeah, guilty as charged.
We all do it. But the key is to challenge those negative thoughts,
Hmm.
replace them with something more positive and affirming.
Like retraining your inner critic to be your inner cheerleader.
Exactly. And self-love isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's something we work on every single day.
So it's about those small acts of kindness towards ourselves.
Yeah, like setting healthy boundaries, prioritizing self-care, and talking to yourself with love and compassion.
Because you're worthy of it.
Absolutely. And when you love yourself, you're able to love others better, and you can show up in the world as your most authentic self.
This has been such a great conversation. We've covered so much ground, from decluttering to self-love.
I know, right?
It's amazing how all these different pieces work together to create a simpler, more fulfilling life.
It really is interconnected, isn't it?
And you know what? It all leads to that final piece of the puzzle that the article emphasizes,
Yeah.
embracing the present moment.
Mindfulness, that's a big one.
It is a big one. And I'll be honest, it's something I really struggle with.
Yeah.
My mind is just always racing, thinking about the past or worrying about the future.
Mhm.
How do we actually, quiet those thoughts and be present?
Well, it takes practice.
Yeah.
Like any skill, it takes time and patience. But one really simple technique is to focus on your breath.
Okay.
Just notice that sensation of each inhale and exhale.
Hmm.
It can really help to ground you in the present moment
Yeah.
and calm that mental chatter.
It sounds so simple, but I can see how it would be really effective. Just taking those few moments to just pause and breathe.
Right. And you can do it anywhere, anytime.
That's true.
And you can actually incorporate mindfulness into other activities too, like when you're walking, eating, even washing the dishes.
Oh, wow.
All those everyday things can become opportunities to practice mindfulness.
Yeah.
The key is to really bring your full attention to whatever you're doing
Okay.
without judgment.
So it's about savoring those everyday moments, even the mundane ones.
Exactly. Finding that extraordinary in the ordinary.
I love that. And, as we cultivate that mindfulness, we start to appreciate life more, right? Like we're less caught up in our thoughts and worries and more present to all the good things around us.
Absolutely. And that actually connects back to gratitude.
Right. It's all coming full circle.
It is. The
Yeah.
more present you are, the more grateful you become.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
It has.
Thank you so much for helping us break down all these amazing tips for simplifying life and finding more happiness.
My pleasure.
And for our listeners out there, we really encourage you to explore these ideas and figure out what simple living means to you.
Yeah, find your own path.
It's a personal journey.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to do it. The important thing is to find what resonates with you
Exactly.
and create a life that feels aligned and joyful and fulfilling.
A life that feels authentically your.
Yes, and that's what it's all about. Well, we'll be back soon with another deep dive into something we think will inspire you to live a more intentional and fulfilling life. So until then, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.